Hello, sports fans. Sports Network live from the Pizza Ranch studio. Southern Bank, Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks, Doak Propane, the Bank of Billings, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol, who reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. It is episode 3 of What's My Line, and now for the members of our dais, longtime TV, radio, sports personality, Mr. Ray Meyer. Ray, thanks for being part of the show today.
Thank you.
And from Senior Health Plans of the Ozarks and pride of McDonald County Mustangs, Scott Purrier. Scott, so much. You have perfect attendance.
I like to think of myself as the Cal Ripken Jr. of What's My Line, with a now three show streak, planning to get to about 2,100 or so before we're done.
It's a record that won't be broken.
And
I've got it on a notepad, writing down the dates.
And from MediaCom 22, Mr. Corey Riggs. Corey, thanks for coming in.
Guy, thank you for having me back. I played so poorly the last time, I thought I might be one and done as opposed to the Iron Horse over here, Mr. Purrier. So thanks for having me back.
Well, certainly appreciate you guys coming on. And Art Haynes may be joining us here shortly. Some honeydew of today, but we may end up welcome him. That's a hard thing to say. Into the show here shortly. But first, here in episode 3 of What's Our Line, mystery guest is with us. Mystery guest, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. Well, we will start the questions on Mr. Scott Purrier and work from the left of the screen to right. Mr. Purrier.
Are you a current coach?
No, I am not.
Mr. Riggs.
Thank you, Guy. Mystery guest, were you formerly a coach?
Yes, I was.
Mr. Meyer.
Were you a basketball coach?
No, I was not.
Back to Scott.
Are you currently a school administrator?
Yes, I am.
Scott, do you already have this figured out?
I've got a couple ideas. We're close.
Say, you're right. way too good at this game.
Corey, there's 1 down, 9 to go.
All right. Let's see. The mystery guest is a current administrator. Is the mystery guest a current administrator of a Central Ozark Conference school?
No, I am not.
Are you also a sports official?
No, I am not.
I see where you're going with
Scott.
that, Ray. That was one of my two. Are you a former high school quarterback?
Yes, I was.
Corey.
Oh, gosh. Did the mystery guest play high school quarterback for an SPS school?
No, I did not.
Right?
Did you play quarterback for an Ozark Conference school?
No, I did not.
Did you play quarterback for Doug Potts?
Yes, I did.
Boom. Lance Roweton, ladies and gentlemen.
You got me. I knew you had the answer a couple questions ago, Scott.
The voice is so familiar, but I was like, Scott's just willing to shoot a lot earlier than the rest of us are.
I haven't talked to him in 25 to 30 years probably, but I recognize that voice because I talked to him a lot back in the 90s.
Absolutely. You were the main the sports guy for the Springfield News Leader, and you covered us all the time. So it's been a minute, but I thought you might get me, Scott.
That's right. And Guy, can we see what Lance looks like now, or is he
Yeah,
off
he'll have
camera?
to reveal himself there.
He healed himself.
I
There
hope
we
you're
go.
good.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
got
How
a
you doing,
got a
Lance?
little shine.
You had a little bit more hair back in the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did for sure.
So, Guy, you know this because we've talked about it and I've said it on the radio, but probably I've not seen a quarterback take a bigger beating and get back up than Lance Roweton did his senior year, especially in the playoffs. And I'm trying to remember what game was that up north that you played that
Salem.
literally Coach Potts had to burn a timeout to let you heal during the timeout.
Yeah, yeah. That was in the Final Four. We played Chillicothe at
That's right.
Chillicothe, and it got pretty rough. We went into the game beat up and couldn't quite pull it out, but we got beat 13-7, and second trip to the Final Four in 2 years, and we were hoping to get back to the state title game, but we just didn't. So it was a fun run.
The kid I felt the sorriest for at that point was the backup quarterback because he's going, what? I have to go in now? and I don't know who it was, but he probably is one of your biggest fans now because I'm okay. I'm going back in. I'm good.
Yeah. I would say he knew there was a pretty good chance he wasn't going to be going in. So there would have had to been something really wrong for me not to go back in.
We'll talk about your transition out of coaching. I know you had a great run as a high school football coach there at the alma mater, and do you miss it? And how long ago now have you been, or how long have you been away from it?
Yeah, sure. So 2015 was the last year that I was on the sideline coaching football at Bolivar. I'd been a head football coach for 16 seasons, 3 at Ash Grove, and then 13 at Bolivar, and I was an assistant before that at Willard. Honestly, I enjoyed coaching the very last day that I did it. I liked practices. I liked the game planning aspect of it. Game planning got a lot easier on into my career because we had huddle and we had better technology to do those things. So a lot more could go into your game plan and what into personnel and so on and so forth. In the old days, a lot of your time was spent just copying film and trying to get everybody something they could watch over the weekend or whatever. So it definitely got a lot easier, a lot better. Trading film was easier. I enjoyed it literally the last day that I did it, but I tell you, it was a 12-month year commitment, and it was it was just a lot of energy goes into that. And halfway down the road, I had a principal job open up. I wasn't exactly sure when I was going to make the move, but probably in the early 2000s, I got my master's and got my specialist in administration. Honestly, just in thoughts that if I ever don't like it someday, or if I ever get fired, because that can happen really easy to a coach, I thought I'd have something to go to. And so I got to the 2015 season. I was getting tired, and not really tired of in-season football, but all the out of the season, all the summer, the workouts, even in the spring. I mean, it turned into a year-round deal to be competitive. And so I'd taken my principal's test, and literally the week I passed, I heard that the halfway principal was retiring, and I applied for the job on a whim, and I got the job. So I've enjoyed the transition. My day job is probably more exciting than what I used to do, because in a weight room, it becomes really monotonous. But I certainly don't have the highs or the lows that the night job of coaching used to give me in this job. So I've enjoyed the transition. It's been good, and the community here is great to work for, and our school board's really cooperative and really great to work with. So it's been a good move.
Lance, I've got to know, what is a principal's test like?
Well, it's a really ambiguous test. Honestly, I was here for 3 years as principal, and then our superintendent retired, and so I had to. I took another test. I had the degrees, but had to take another test, and it's just a test that all administrators have to take, and if you pass, then they deem you as eligible for those positions. So I'm actually the superintendent now here at Halfway, but it's one of those tests where there's like 2 or 3 right answers on every question, and you hope you get them right.
I always preferred true and false, so that
Absolutely.
I would not have done well on that test.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Lance, you and I go way back, back
Yep.
to American Legion baseball, where you actually played for me a
Yep.
year, just that 1 year. And I'll tell you a little story about Lance. He led off for us that year, and he would walk by me going out to the batter circle, and I'd say, "Lance, we need a run." And we were really good that year. I mean, we were beating Nixes and Ozarks and Hillcrest, and somehow he'd get a run. But he hit like 440 that year. But I'm just going to tell you,
Actually,
mechanically,
guy,
yeah.
don't short me. I hit 500 that year. Come on now.
Okay.
Only two strikeouts. You never forget those things.
But I mean, mechanically, he looked screwball in the box. And I'd have guys from the Braves would come up because I was working for the Braves a little bit then. They'd go, "Man, you need to work on that." I said, "Don't even touch him. He's hitting 500. Don't even mess with him." And had a guy, we went down to Mountain Home, Arkansas, and they had a catcher, ended up going to Arkansas, who had not allowed a stolen base all year and landed. And he was out by 3 steps, but jumped the guy, landed on second, and got picked off going to third. But he did get a stolen base. But no, those
I
are
did
great
get a
times.
stolen base.
Yep,
Yeah.
you did.
On all those guys, that was the most fun year I ever had playing baseball. And we ran up against a few guys that were big time catchers. And if I got on first, you guys always gave me the green light. And it was like a personal challenge. I was going to steal on that guy. So that guy threw me out, but I did jump the tag and just couldn't get stopped on second. But we did have a lot of successful steals too that year.
That was a lot of fun and a great group. I mean, that was Post was coaching that year. Eric Briggs was on the staff. Your brother Brad was on the staff. Jay Halbrick, who's at Evangel, he was on that staff. So we had a lot of fun. But
Yeah, super fun year. And something else I don't know if you remember or not, but at one point in that season we had a 26 game win streak, which is pretty hard to do in baseball. And we were getting ready to play a game against an opponent that wasn't quite as didn't have a good record and so on and so forth. And you guys had warned us about keeping our heads on straight and so on and so forth. And at our field, the Central Bulldogs came up and run ruled us, and that ended our win streak. But we got back on a win streak after that. But sometimes teenage boys can't learn those lessons unless they learn them the hard way.
So you're halfway,
Yep.
no football, right? Is that in the plans or in the
football.
works?
What's that?
Is that in the works? Do you have enough kids to do do they
No,
still have 8-man, or what do they play now for the small schools?
they do have 8-man. That's not really an option here. We're in the PCL, and our conference doesn't do that. And there's not a lot of 8-man around here. We have been asked to co-op with a school or two, and we've just chosen not to do that. Football is a real community sport. I think that maybe it's the last community sport left. I think that's why you see some towns are good year in and year out at football. It's kind of a way of life. The AAU scene, the travel ball scene, like that's not part of football yet. I'm not saying it won't ever be. And so, for a town that hasn't had football, it would be a really hard transition. One school that has been successful at that transition has been Skyline. A few years ago, they added it, and almost immediately they were good. But most schools that add it late struggle because it's just a year-round commitment by your athletes. And if all the athletes can work out together and become bigger, stronger, faster, all those things, and then they play other things along with football. If everybody plays football, and then your skilled kids play the more skilled sports or whatever, it can certainly work. But I just think it's for a community to just co-op in with another town, I don't know if that's a great setup for success, because it's just there's a lot that goes into being to having a good football program.
How do you get your football fix these days?
Well, my nephew Jack Roweton, he played at Bolivar and just graduated a couple of years ago, and so he plays at Pittsburgh State. He's a redshirt freshman. He's actually a lineman. He plays center there. It's my older brother Brad's boy, and he's probably 6'2" and 295 pounds, and great big strong guy. And so I went to all his Bolivar games his junior and senior year. And then my younger brother Brock, his boy plays. He's the starting quarterback at Willard, and he's going to be a junior. And so last year I went to several of his games, and of course the next couple of years we'll be there. So I typically try to be somewhere, even when my nephews weren't playing. I tried to go somewhere every Friday night. I really like high school football. I'll just pick out a random, Carthage Webb or Joplin Nixa, or just, Ozark Nixa, whatever the big game is, Kickapoo Glendale. A couple years ago when Glendale was so good with their passing attack, I was pretty fresh out of it then. And I actually watched them 3 or 4 times, and I would go home and like game plan, like, how would I stop that? And so, and I don't know how anyone, they were a tough group to stop, but for a year or two, I still had coaches that would send me film, and I would, try to help break down, but all that's kind of stopped now. So anyway, like I said, I really enjoy the intricacies of football and the X's and O's part of it. And so, yeah, I mean, DVR has been great for watching college games and pros, because I watch it like a coach a lot of times, unless we're having guests. But if it's just me, I'm stopping, rewinding, who are they reading? Why'd the quarterback go here? What coverage did he see? So I still think it a lot. I just got to put that side of me out to pasture a little bit.
And last question for me, but I'm sure that neither one of you are aware of it probably, but what was the overall record, Brock Roweton versus Lance Roweton in coaching?
Well, not that anyone knows, but I think I'm undefeated. So
make sure Brock sees this, would you?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this too, though. Brock had a couple of teams at Willard that would have beaten us, but we just didn't play those years. So a lot of that's just luck of the draw, and when you're good and when you're not as good.
Yeah.
Well, what about with such a passion still for the game and everything? And I know you did this briefly at times. What about broadcasting? What about putting on the analyst hat for like radio or TV? Is that something that you'd entertain?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I have done that several times. And in fact, when I still worked at Bolivar, and even like the year after, I did basketball games with Chuck Blair, and he and I went to Blue and Gold, and just every game. I mean, we just we met, traveled, and went and did that, and that was a lot of fun. And then when Chuck also does the football games at Bolivar, so every once in a while when his color guy can't be there, I fill in and do that. So yeah, I like doing that. It's fun, and it gives you new respect for the radio guys. Number one, to sound like a radio guy. Like I don't know if I know I don't have a TV face, and I'm sure I don't have a radio voice. So it's hard, and you have to speak quickly and concisely. I mean, action's happening, and so it's hard to do, but it's fun, and I do like filling in sometimes.
You know, I can remember back when one of those Bolivar Willard games, myself and Brad did the play-by-play, and then
Yeah,
your dad came up and did a halftime show with us. So we had all the Rowetons there.
yeah. That particular game was at Willard, and I remember we had a player's dad who was a doctor, and our quarterback Colton Peavy had the flu, and so and it was bad. Like, he couldn't hardly function, and we didn't have much of a backup. We were pretty good, but we didn't have a backup, and I wasn't sure we could beat anybody without him. And so they got some fluids in him, and got him ready to go, and we scored like 28 points pretty quick. But as the half went on, he just got weaker and weaker and weaker, and by the end of it, we were just handing off. And so I was preparing to go with the backup and just try to run the clock out and get through the game. And the doctor came down and said, "Hey, we can fix that." So right in the locker room, they put IVs in him and got stuff back in him, made him feel better, and he finished the game. But I remember the Willard coaches walked by and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Bolivar is doing IVs in the locker room." That wasn't a normal thing, but I got to hear all about it because I obviously was best friends with their head coach, and so those are things you don't always hear from the other locker room. But that was a fun night.
Yeah, Lance, and just one more here, but for me,
Sure.
obviously, I mean, Bolivar for a long time was kind of like the quarterback high school. I mean, yourself and then Brock, and you had the Peavies, you had Gio.
Had the Blair
Who was,
brothers. Can't forget
yeah,
those guys. Yeah.
yeah. And who, as a coach, who was the best quarterback that you coached against that you can remember? I've got an
Probably the
idea.
most. Yeah, probably the most dominant guy that. Golly, the Webb kid from Union. He started at Kansas University, like the next year. We beat them in the playoffs on our way to our roadblock Webb City. That was always the end of our season. But he was probably the guy that went on and played the large, at the largest level. But the guy that dominated us the most was the Brock kid from Mount Vernon. Oh gosh,
Thomas.
Thomas Brock. Good Lord. He really dominated us. We were 9-0, they were 9-0, and I remember that at the time they were one of the first schools around that were running a zone read scheme where they were in the gun, but they were running option, and that was still pretty new. And we knew he was their best athlete, and so early in the game, well, actually, we went into the game saying, "Hey, we're going to sit our D end, we're going to make him hand it off, and we're going to let anyone else beat us but him," because he was pretty special. And so our D end, who was a 200-pound kid and weight room strong, we thought we had it covered, and early, I mean, it might have been 0-0 still. They run their patented play. He pulls it because we made him pull it. We knew, or we wanted him to give it, and we sat our D end. Thomas did what he wanted. He was keeping it this time, and so we have a guy that should have been tackling dive, but we're going to tackle quarterback with the D end, and Thomas stiff armed our D end right in the chest and body slammed him on his back, and then went 50, and I thought, oh Lord, we're in trouble. And we were. They were ahead 34-0 or 34-6 at half, and turbo clocked us. But that didn't happen all the time, but it did that night, and he was incredible. We didn't have an answer, so that was probably, like I said, the Webb kid. He started at KU the very next year. He was awesome, and all those Webb City kids. I mean, they were incredible. But I didn't feel dominated like we did against Thomas Brock quite so much.
I was on the sideline for that game, and Shad, after that happened, right after he stiff armed that guy, Shad looked at you and go, "What are we going to do?" and you said,
Oh yeah,
I don't know, but we're in trouble."
that's exactly what I said. I said we are in trouble because if we can't, we're wanting him to give it, and we're dictating what he's supposed to do. But if he pulls it and body slams our guy and goes 60, we're in trouble. So, and we were.
Yeah, I was up in the press box. Tom Cox is on the headset, and he's telling Joey Mayberry in the second half, "You got to get him out of that game. He's going to run it up as high as he can." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, Tom, that's the only football player I ever saw could run a football game up."
Oh, he was incredible. So we talked about Thomas Brock for a long time after that. Like even, I mean, years after that, our coaching staff had a lot of continuity, and we had a lot of the same guys for a lot of the time, and that game would come up from time to time, and just got to tip your hat to a really good player. So
Well, like the Rowetons, it was genetic because that Brock family from Skip on down and the uncles, that's how they play. They
yeah,
don't believe anybody's going to beat them, and
Yeah.
you better bring it. And it's just like you and your family were as well.
yeah, no, absolutely. So, and Guy, you mentioned all of our quarterbacks. Golly, just the ones I coached, Colt Blair, who's now the AD at Willard, Spencer Blair. Then you had Preston Gio was incredible. Then you had Colton Peavy, then Rafe Peavy. Then, you had Connor Seckler right after Rafe, who went and pitched in the minors and threw at 90 miles an hour. And so, like, we just had a run of incredible talent, and at the quarterback position in particular, and it was a lot of fun. You always call plays to fit what your guy could do, and so it was always a little bit different. But they could always do a lot of things, and they could always do some of it really well, and so makes for good offense and good football teams.
Well, Lance, we certainly appreciate you being generous with your time, and Scott and Corey and Mr. Meyer also. You guys will be getting Pizza Ranch coupons, as will Lance, and we'll get to eat. And we've got one scheduled for any members of the dais. We got one scheduled for next Friday at noon. If you guys would like to join, and as soon as Lance started talking, I thought, "Oh, they're going to recognize his voice."
Well, at least one of us did. Hold on. At least
There you go.
Right.
You're going to have to get the voice change. If you have John Perry on, I'll get him before he says hello.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, when I saw Scott on the panel, I thought we're in trouble because we've had a lot of conversations over
That
the
just
years.
says I'm old, basically.
No. Yeah, I am too. We're all it happens to all of us.
And before we let you go, I know it was I was laughing when you were talking about watching Glendale the year after, a team that threw more passes in one game than you did your senior year, probably. I think
That's probably the truth. Yeah, totally different time. It's funny when you go back and watch football from. I played in the early '90s. It is like it's such a different game nowadays, and a more fun game, than it was back then. I mean, we all loved it. It was awesome, but yeah, I mean, option was it. Everyone ran option, and really a large part of my career, in fact, all of my career, when we started implementing our defense every year, we started with implementing stopping the triple option because we knew that Webb City was going to be at the end. So we worked on that literally every week a little bit, starting from the beginning. But in the old days, every team was that. Every team did that. And so, yeah, it was certainly a different era, and no one threw very much. I mean, that just wasn't how it was played back then.
Lance, thanks.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Good to see everybody.
All right. You're watching What's My Line from Pizza Ranch Studio.